I just finished Wednesday season 2, and all I can think is, do these writers have amnesia?
See, I suffer from short-term memory loss.
Because it seems like they forgot season 1 and then somehow also season 2 as they were writing it. Plot lines are sent to the grave, characters are lost to the dark, and while amnesia isn't contagious, I found myself asking, wait, who is that? Every time a new character came on screen. Full disclosure, I already had significant memory loss going into season 2 since season 1 released 3 years ago, and I didn't love it. I have a whole video on why. Of course, Netflix did not plan this gap. It was due to Hollywood strikes and production complexities and the busy schedule of Jenna Ortega, but intentional or not, it still wasn't worth the wait. And it definitely wasn't worth the 2-part release schedule. In fact, I think this show has fried my brain. So let's journey through these bizarre writing choices and see how many more of my brain synapses snap in the process. And maybe some of yours will too. There will be spoilers, and to be completely honest with you, I only watched this season once, and I was checked out half of the time. So it's very likely I will get some things wrong, so feel free to correct me in the comments. This is just my honest lived experience. Wednesday season 2 follows a similar premise to season 1. Wednesday attends Nevermore, a school for superpowered misfits, as she unravels a deadly town mystery that's somehow connected to her. This time, her family joins her at the school, and I welcomed this change. Wednesday is based on the Addams Family franchise after all, and I did remember wanting to see more of them in season 1. Unfortunately, in season 2, we introduce them, then amnesia occurs. Pugsley, for example, is Wednesday's younger brother, and he enrolls as a student at Nevermore. You can really tell there was a gap in filming with how much older he looks. Pugsley has difficulty making friends until he meets Slurp, a killer zombie, who he tries to befriend, hide, and then later has to try to find. But I think the writers forgot to write Pugsley a story because there's just no emotional buildup around him wanting friends for me to really care about this plotline. And Slurp doesn't do anything but slurp up brains for 5 episodes. I actually did forget about Pugsley halfway through the season, and so did his family.
I realize your mother and I have been so focused on your sister, we haven't been around for you.
I think Pugsley also has amnesia because at one point, he helps Slurp avoid the police from being caught. But Slurp has killed like 10 people by now, and Pugsley is definitely a witness to some of them. I know the Addams family are dark and he is desperate for friends, but they also have morals. He just lets a serial killer on the loose in the town. I guess he forgot. Pugsley eventually gets betrayed by Slurp, but becomes friends with this bug boy. However, this friendship is 100% out of pity.
I was thinking, over the break, if you're not too busy, you could come for a visit?
Pugsley learns absolutely nothing in this whole show, and he didn't even get a real friend. I really genuinely think they forgot about him in the writer's room. Then there's Morticia, Wednesday's mom, and she's staying at the school because she chairs the fundraising gala. I don't think this makes much sense at all, but I'm going to let it slide because this is a show about ghosts and faceless people. Morticia has a very strained relationship with Wednesday, and this is carried through from season 1. I really love Morticia. I love Catherine Zeta-Jones as Morticia, and I really wanted to see more of her in season 2, and I'm glad that I did. The problem with Morticia is that all of her scenes feel the same with very limited progression. It's as if we forget that we just had this same conversation with Wednesday in the last episode. By the end of the season, she does learn to keep less lies from her family, and she sees how her strange relationship with her own mother parallels her relationship with Wednesday, her daughter. But it's just all so surface level. Morticia is a side character, and I'm totally happy to unravel more about her and Wednesday's relationship in future seasons. I didn't expect them to fully reconcile by the end of season 2, but since she has a bigger presence than in season 1, I expected her to have more of a character too. And I really would have preferred exploring her character than so many of these extra new characters, which we'll get to later. Gomez, Wednesday's father, also has more of a presence this season, but I think they also forgot about him until episode 8 when his connection to the whole mystery is revealed. I think we also forgot that this exact same thing happened in Wednesday season 1, and we just kind of wrote in a similar plot. I did like that we at least saw more of the family, and I did enjoy Grandmama and Fester as fun, kooky cameos. The heart of the Addams family, though, in this show is, of course, Wednesday. Wednesday feels very much the same as season 1, but I think this is a good thing. She's still very emotionless, deadpan, and macabre. They even say that she doesn't evolve, she cocoons, which I think is very consistent for her character.
I don't evolve, I cocoon.
She has grown a little bit from season 1 since she is protective of Enid and cares for her in her own weird way, versus how selfish she initially is. Wednesday deals with a couple of things this season. However, I do feel many of them are lost to the abyss. For example, at the beginning of the season, she's annoyed at her fame since she saved the school in season 1, but this only serves as a way to introduce a new character, and her unwanted popularity is never mentioned again. Then after thinking she's mastered her psychic powers, she loses them by abusing them. Losing her visions now is bad timing because her last premonition is about causing Enid's death. So her question becomes, can she control this outcome? Can she save Enid? And can she regain her visions? The problem is that to regain her psychic abilities, she has to connect with those around her rather than try to control everything else. And there are a couple of problems with this. First, for as much as her story is supposed to be about emotions and relationships, I think we forgot to explore them. Morticia and Wednesday, as I mentioned, they have a strained mother-daughter relationship. Morticia is overbearing on Wednesday, and they're opposite. She is this positive dove figure, and Wednesday is a negative raven figure. And Morticia takes Wednesday's psychic book, which she feels she needs to regain her power. So there's a lot of conflict throughout the season, and by the end, Morticia tries to connect with Wednesday by being honest with her and unveiling some truths about their family. But from Wednesday's side, she never really makes much strides to mend this relationship, which I did feel was quite odd because she really wants her psychic powers back. And so many people tell her that she just has to connect with her mom to get them.
Focus on fixing the relationship with your mother.
I feel like she should try a tiny bit more than she did because she is so motivated to regain her visions. Now, I don't mind leaving room to explore their dynamic for future seasons. Like I said, I didn't need them to fully reconcile by the end. And I think it's interesting that she still distrusts her mom because her mom does lie. But I just wish they gave me something for her main question of the season. Maybe it was supposed to be that she rejects staying with her grandma because the grandma tries to introduce a rift between Wednesday and Morticia, but then she doesn't go back and stay with her family over the summer. She just stays with Fester. I feel like Wednesday and Morticia needed a little bit more of a heart-to-heart, given that they were supposed to be central to her visions. And then there's Enid and Wednesday's relationship. This is also strange because Wednesday won't tell her that she saw her die. From Wednesday's perspective, she's protecting Enid, but from Enid's perspective, Wednesday is avoiding her. And this whole conflict is so frustrating because their whole problem would be solved if Wednesday just told her the truth. Instead, they just fight for 5 episodes. It's kind of a shame they don't have more friendship bonding moments because I'm not that invested in Wednesday saving her. I mean, did we forget that in season 1, they were also mostly fighting? It isn't until the final episode that they actually hug it out. In season 2, we don't really get a sense of their bond until the body swap episode in episode 6, but that's also the episode she saves Enid and changes the premonition, so this whole conflict is so rushed and anticlimactic. Although I did think episode 6 was really fun. I really enjoyed seeing opposite Wednesday and opposite Enid. I thought both actresses did such a great job. They also almost sounded the same in a weird way.
Watching my body contort to your emotional outbursts is making me queasy. My shoes are filled with broken glass and razor blades.
We'll pretend we have a contagious disease and say we need to be quarantined. Got ya! Happy prank day!
Another thing from season 1 that I think we forgot about is that Wednesday's psychic abilities are not reliable. How do we know that Wednesday's premonition of Enid dying is truthful? And when it changes to an Addams number, how do we know that that is truthful? Her premonitions seem pretty accurate now, and maybe they explain this and I could be misremembering, but I feel like that's a pretty big thing to continue from season 1. They also forget about Wednesday and B-Boy's relationship until episode 7, where they only exchange 2 lines with each other. And this is pretty similar to Wednesday and Pugsley. Even though they're at the same school now, they barely interact. And same with Bianca, but I guess we just forgot about their whole feud and heart-to-heart. Wednesday's spirit guide, Goody, is also gone, but in place of her, Principal Weems is back. I just knew as soon as she came on screen that they wrote her in because they knew they made a mistake by killing her off. Does it make sense? Definitely not. But you know what? I kind of welcomed it because I love Gwendolyn Christie. I think she was one of the things that made this season bearable for me. And I do like how Weems and Wednesday interact with each other. You'd think that because they didn't spend much time on Wednesday's relationships, that they'd amp up the consequences of Wednesday controlling situations. But I think they forget to do this too. They mention that to play her music better, Wednesday has to lose herself in it, but her cello is referenced once and then amnesia. Wednesday has to learn to accept flaws in her writing, but her book is mentioned once and then amnesia. Wednesday has to let the police handle Tyler and not become his master and control him. This is mentioned several times, but to get here, important people are mentioned once and then amnesia. I think it's just because there are so many other things happening in this plot that we'll get to in a bit. There's just no room for the characters to breathe, not even the main one. And it just made me lose interest. But in relation to the investigations, I was glad that Wednesday lost her visions because I think it would be too easy to figure out these mysteries with them. And she needs more of a weakness, which is also why if she gets these visions back, that they should still be quite unreliable. For this same reason, I'm also very glad that they got rid of Wednesday's cell phone that they introduced at the end of season 1. The old technology made Wednesday feel very unique and made solving the mysteries a lot more fun because she couldn't just Google vampire in a computer. But then she just gains Agnes, who is a new ghost friend, who ends up doing half of her investigative work for her and popping up at the most convenient times. And I think that's almost worse because Wednesday is less active, but things still come easy to her. However, I did really enjoy Agnes as a character aside from that, and I really did like the actress that played her. Agnes is a super fan of Wednesday's. She's also a ghost. She kind of gives Moaning Myrtle vibes. She wraps her entire identity around Wednesday until she ends up finding herself, which I thought was quite sweet. That said, I definitely think they forgot to tie up Wednesday's stalker plot at the end of season 1 and just slapped her in there as a reason for Wednesday's stalker. So she's really only a stalker for one episode and then just becomes Wednesday's investigator. Agnes and Enid also butt heads the whole season for Wednesday's BFF status until Enid suddenly feels bad for her and then they dance together, which was quite cute, but it did feel super sudden. And also Enid was very annoying this season. For most of the season, Enid is just dealing with love drama. She doesn't like Ajax anymore and avoids him. To be honest, I didn't really care about her and Ajax in season 1. They were so uninteresting that I was so uninvested in Enid's romance troubles. Enid swaps Ajax for this werewolf boy who I liked even less than Ajax, as crazy as that is. She doesn't break up with Ajax before hooking up with this werewolf boy, so that's pretty poor of her. But to be honest, I didn't really have much feeling for it. Bruno also is revealed to be a cheater, so I guess they deserve each other. I would be completely happy to amnesia him out of the plot in season 3. And somehow Ajax suffered from amnesia as well, because he just forgives her, and she didn't do anything to earn that forgiveness. At the beginning of the season, it also seems like fame is going to her head. Now that she's wolfed out, she's a whole new girl and can find her place in the pack. It definitely felt like they were setting her up to have some sort of arrogant complex or overconfidence. But after episode 2, we amnesia this out because she ends up feeling like the exact same character as season 1. I also think they forgot about all her self-doubt in season 1. I really liked that she seemed so happy-go-lucky, but was dealing with a lot of confidence issues on the inside because she was a late bloomer in wolfing out. And I really doubt that wolfing out fixed all of those internal struggles, but just blame it on the amnesia. Enid also wants to be dance captain and part of the Nightshades and secure a role in the pack. And she does, I guess, do all of these things, but there's only like 2 seconds of each of them happening on screen. And she's like a main character. So we kind of just forget about all of the things she wants to do, and she ends up not doing much. Enid does become more interesting later on in the season when it's possible that she's becoming an alpha werewolf, which is a type of werewolf that, despite what the name sounds like, would end up being a lone wolf and then possibly hunted by her pack. These are pretty high stakes for Enid because she loves people and her whole thing is about finding her place with people and with the other werewolves. But it comes at the 6th episode out of 8 episodes, which is so late in the series to be exploring this. It's also so poorly explored because her music teacher, who is also a werewolf, keeps saying that the pack is here for you, Enid, during this tough time. We'll help you not turn into an alpha. And then she just locks her alone in the Lupin cages. I mean, where is her pack then? Not to mention the term alpha werewolf is a little bit confusing because alphas are typically leaders, not loners. To avoid becoming an alpha, Enid must not transition into a werewolf, especially under a full moon. But to save Wednesday, she makes this ultimate sacrifice. And I feel like this should have been such an emotional, big moment because they're best friends. And Enid really does not want to be alone or turn into an alpha. But it just kind of happens. And I'm sure she'll turn back eventually. I'm really not that worried about it. I think as long as I never see Enid wolf run again in human form, I'll be happy. Perhaps I can get amnesia for that. Then there's Bianca. Bianca is still deeply underutilized with these same horrible contacts. This poor girl. And in season 1, she was a mean girl. And I feel like, did we just forget she was just starting to do right by the end? Bianca's meanness was a reaction to her mom's treatment and growing up in a cult, which she's tried to run away from and still hasn't coped with yet. In season 1, her mom blackmails her to come back to the cult, which she agrees to do. And her mom is also married to the leader. It's a pretty messed up situation. And there's a huge cliffhanger about it at the end of season 1. But don't worry, in season 2, we forget all of that, and she's made peace with her mom. Her mom is now very sorry and in hiding from the cult. And then Bianca receives what might be the worst plotline. The principal asks her to siren Morticia to get funding for the school from her mom.
Well, I think Principal Dort was hoping you would reach out to her for a large donation.
And this is just so uninteresting. In fact, we forget about this plotline for most of the show. It turns out that the cult and the principal are all connected anyway, so it's not like they dropped this plotline completely, but it's all such a rushed twist, and it's so disconnected from the rest of the plot that maybe it would have been better for them to just not include it. I thought that Bianca was going to find a second mom in Morticia, which would be quite interesting since Morticia feels so disconnected from her own daughter, and Bianca at the end of season 1 was so disconnected from her own mom. But instead, Bianca just moves her mom from a hotel to the school, which is all pointless because the principal finds them with no effort when it's convenient. Ugh, I can feel my brain cells crumbling just remembering it. At least she's not wearing those boring tracksuits anymore, but she did swap them for denim on denim, and I'm not sure if that's better. What do you think? As a siren, she's also so overpowered. I mean, she has the ability to give people amnesia. I don't know how she's not running the world at this point. And also, where did her normie possible boyfriend go? And on that note, what happened to the normies and the outcasts? I guess we amnesia'd that whole plotline out except for that camp episode, which is really too bad because I thought that was quite an interesting dynamic in season 1. This whole world feels so small. It feels like it has 5 people in it. There's really no world building or lore to get invested in. Like the Nightshades, they used to be this cool, mysterious undercover power ring, and now it's just used as a plot device when the team needs to defeat a bad guy. I also would have liked an actual normie friend since Tyler never was a true normie. Speaking of Tyler, Tyler is now locked up in a mental institution. He's still monstrous and holds a grudge against Wednesday and Enid for trying to kill him. His whole story is about, can monsters change? Was he always a monster? Was the hide in him and Thornhill just released it? Which is an interesting question, but the whole season, Tyler just changes into a hide and people torment him. And I feel like I should feel really bad for Tyler because he's been through so much, but weirdly, even though he has traumatic visions and he kills his master and then he reunites with his mom and then his mom dies again, I just wasn't that emotionally invested in him. And I think it's just because he moves through plot points just for the sake of moving through plot points. And his story maybe is getting old and we never get a sense of what's going on in his head. Obviously, he's struggling, but I just, as a viewer, I just don't really care about his story. And then the writers, of course, are trying to be very ambiguous with the romance with Wednesday. To me, I don't think they should have a romantic relationship. It just doesn't make sense. But of course, they leave the door open just enough in case they want to explore it in the future. But I'd be happy to completely amnesia this plot if they wanted. And then there's Thing. He wants a sense of belonging, which is carried on from season 1. I really don't know how to feel about Thing's plot twist. He ends up being connected to the whole murder mystery plot and is the hand of Isaac, who is a completely confusing character, who also happens to be Slurp, Pugsley's zombie, and essentially the villain of this season. I think it's really cool that Thing learns about his ancestry, and it was fun how the same letters of night spell Thing, but I feel like he deserved better, especially because Isaac's story is so confusing. I think Thing is such a lovable character, even though he isn't a human, could have had a way more interesting and intricate backstory. However, this reveal completely took me off guard, so they did a good job there. Wednesday definitely feels more like a fun murder mystery than it is a character study, but I think this is too bad because having a cast of teen misfits is such a great opportunity to explore deeper themes of uniqueness and coming of age stories. I think this was also a problem in season 1 as well. They always just touch on the surface of interesting plot lines. Like, it's interesting that Wednesday has to open up to others when she's so naturally closed off. Meanwhile, Enid loves people, but now she might end up alone. But we don't really explore any of that deeply. And I think one of the reasons why I don't feel that emotional or connected to any of these characters is because the consequences aren't dire, which I know sounds really bad, but that's one of the ways to really get emotionally attached to characters. But Wednesday, for example, she gets out of a coma in 2 seconds, and then to regain her psychic powers temporarily, she has to pay a price. But it's just switching bodies with Enid, and that is so easily overcome. Saving Enid, which is this looming threat the whole season, is so easily done. Is switching bodies really all it took for Wednesday to understand Enid, someone who is so vastly different from her and who she's been avoiding this whole season? And then it's so easy to free Bianca's mom and to get the principal to tell the truth about running this cult. Things just happen because they have to, and they don't really affect anyone. It just makes them feel empty and flat, even though they're all misfits with superpowers. And then aside from the characters, this plot is straight up confusing. Between the two parts, this story is so disconnected and so rushed. We go from trying to figure out who this murderous bird lady is, but then we amnesia that out after part 1, only for there to be a tiny cliffhanger at the end of episode 8. Then we go to locating outcast experiments at Willow Hill, a mental facility, to then finding Tyler, to then tracking and controlling Tyler, to then saving Enid, to then saving Pugsley, to then killing Tyler's mom and her zombie brother. Like, my brain is about to explode. I could go back and try to understand and unravel the plot more for you, but I just don't think I can do it. On top of the main murder mystery, there are so many disconnected side plots that are just kind of boring to watch and forgettable, like finding Slurp or hiding Bianca's mom or saving Enid from a sort of stalker. I think most of this could have been cut, and the time could have been spent on fleshing out existing characters and just one strong mystery. And then the relationships between everyone are so overcomplicated that it's so easy to forget who people are. Who is Judy? Who is Miss Fairburn? Who is Augustus? Who is Lois? I thought Francoise was Ophelia, Morticia's long-lost sister, who gets mentioned once and then amnesiaed until the final episode. And then who is Isaac? Isaac has an incredibly confusing past. He goes from zombie to mad scientist, but he was also a past Da Vinci and now a current Darth Vader. And he's also Francois' brother, but perhaps a secret lover. And he was originally killed by Gomez and also birthed Thing. Whose brainchild was this? And then 99% of these people die. I just don't know what the point is. And is it really plausible that Weems is related to Wednesday? And of course, no one but Ajax knew about Bianca and her whole struggle, but then they see one headline and suddenly understand everything.
I can't believe Bianca had a whole crime drama going on and none of us knew about it.
I guess every generation gets their own Pretty Little Liars mystery, where everyone is related to everyone and no one really dies. And also on the topic of solving these mysteries, many of the people around Wednesday are incompetent, for lack of a better word. The police don't know how to police, and it's kind of silly that a bunch of teens come closer to capturing a hide than they do. And with how perceptive Agnes is, how does she not know that Wednesday and Enid have swapped bodies? It seems pretty obvious. And how did Morticia not know that either? She has premonitions too. Or does she also have amnesia? In some episodes, not much actually happens. It's just a bunch of random side quests. And then they'll introduce a conflict in one episode, forget about it, and then rush to conclude it in a single episode. But there are a couple of things I did enjoy. For example, I think the style of the show, at least in the first couple episodes, is quite fun. Like, I really like Wednesday's flashbacks. And some of the stop motion animation is really unique. It's a lot more creative than most teen shows, and I definitely give it credit for that. They also got a much bigger budget this season. The makeup and prosthetics I thought were excellent. I thought Slurp looked really cool. The Day of the Dead looked great, though I did not love the CGI for the hides. Those were a little bit disturbing. Also happy to see that the school uniforms are their true purple color and not the blue. That was a color grading issue in season 1. And I was so happy to learn that Wednesday is actually allergic to color.
Please excuse Wednesday. She's allergic to color.
I took this comment very literally in season 1, and I remember saying it in my first video. And the amount of comments that I got that were like, she's not actually allergic to color. It's so silly you thought that was true. Well, look who's the fool now. I thought Lady Gaga's cameo was so fun. I, of course, still love Jenna as Wednesday. The girl who played Agnes was fantastic. And whoever played Isaac, really great actor. I mean, he was stealing every scene. I'm kind of upset that he also dies. It's like Weems all over again. They always kill off the best actors. Now, the cliffhangers at the end of episode 8 don't particularly hook me in. Will Enid come back out of her werewolf status? What will happen with Tyler? Is he going to be redeemed? Who is Ophelia? I mean, I guess they're interesting questions, but I don't know if it's enough for me to come back and watch season 3. I can already feel how many brain cells I've lost just trying to remember this mess. In fact, I don't even think I remember how I'm supposed to end these videos. But I did remember to share that you can now shop all of my art book recommendations and everything I use for YouTube and a couple of other fun things. Super helpful if you're just curious what I use or if you wanted to use the same things or gift some things for people for the holiday season. I will link this in the description. Thank you so much for watching and bye.